About 120 feet. Running game every week. About 100 what they keep. Fantasies, Egyptian cheats. If there was only a way to test this, check this. Listen to the 40 for your next shit. Flexes, FF is what they obsess with. Checklist complete, I guess you can't best us. Rest of the fantasy community, go ahead and book the L when they lose to me. It's nothing new to me, I'm just the dude you see. Biggest difference is I listen regularly. Yeah, I will not lose 14 my dudes. I will not lose 14 my dudes. Go check the 40 shorty, yeah. Check the 40 shorty, yeah.
We are back. Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy 40 Podcast. I am John DeBari with my co-host Matt Walker. The missing in action, as always, Mr. Andrew Burke may or may not join us as we continue here. Today we are going to talk a little bit about what we've seen in early rookie drafts in this early start to the Dynasty offseason. How are you doing today, Walk?
Doing well. Yeah, we're knee deep in drafts. I think you've got a lot more going on than I do. I've completed one, and I think I'm in 4 right now with 2 or 3 left to go. Realize I don't play in as many Dynasty leagues as I think I do at the end of the day, but no, it's good. It's a nice distraction during these times. You know, we had that interesting NFL draft, and now we get to own these guys in Dynasty. So I'm excited to talk some findings in our draft so far. We're going to go over MFL ADP and let people know where they can find value, I guess, in some future drafts if they haven't drafted yet.
So far, early returns for you. Who have you been finding landing on your team? Either more than you thought or just you were hoping for, but how's it shaking out in the early goings for you?
See, the irony of that question is I don't think I own 2 shares of any single player right now. I am in such different positions in all of my leagues that I've made plays for certain guys. I have come up empty in most of those attempts, so I would have a lot more shares of certain players. But in the one league I have that's completed, shout out to the League of Wannabes, is I made a heavy play to rebuild a team. So I had 3 picks in the top 8 of this draft. I had 1, 2, and 8. And I went Jonathan Taylor, Edwards Hilaire, and I got my boy Jalen Reagor. I jumped up from an early, I forget what I gave up, a later first and an early second to go get Reagor. And then I threw some darts late. I got some of my guys that I know you like as well. I got Quintez Cephas in that draft. I traded, I moved around some players, and I got AJ Dillon, who I think I'm clearly on record on this podcast saying I do not like AJ Dillon, but I'm seeing a path to opportunity, and unfortunately, it's at the expense of Aaron Jones. So I'm getting more Dillon than I desire, but it's been there in the 3rd round in 2 different drafts that I've been in, and at that point in time, I'm willing to take the risk that even if he's Derrick Henry light, that I can probably move him after a year and get a tremendous return on value. So my desire with him is hopefully he hits so I can trade him immediately thereafter. I don't think he's going to be sustained production. He is a short-term investment, in my opinion. 1.5, 2 years tops, and he'll be off all of my team. So unfortunately, the answer is I don't have a my guy anywhere. There's a lot of players that I can speak to where they're falling to where I would have taken them. So what about you? I know one guy in particular because we're in enough leagues together that you are finding your way onto your roster pretty seamlessly. But you've also had a lot more picks in the leagues that we have together than I have. So the approach has been somewhat different, right?
It's been a weird year for me because I usually am drafting in very similar spots in all the leagues, and as a result, I end up overweighting a lot of guys. But I usually get guys I like, so I don't care. This year, for lack of a better term, the term for me this year is diversification. I like at running back, I've got so far 1 Edwards Hilaire, 1 Taylor, 1 Akers, 1 Dobbins, 1 Vaughn, 1 Gibson, 1 Moss. So I've got, a little piece of them all over the place, which I don't like because obviously a couple of them are going to suck. So, I mean, I know that there's some bad ones in there. We just don't know who they are till it plays out. But at wide receiver, I've actually, we talked about it in the DMs and texting and stuff. I've intentionally gone kind of a different direction in a couple leagues. So this is going to be a different year for me, the way these leagues shake out, because I had a bunch of Rager shares early. And then when I was on the clock and he was still there, I was like, ooh, what if he busts? So then I pivoted. I got more Justin Jefferson than I thought I was going to get. So I've diversified. But the guy that you were alluding to earlier, man, end of the second, I have had Bryan Edwards plop into my lap in like 80% of my leagues. I think I'm up to 5 or 6 Bryan Edwards shares now. And I tweeted it out too, which isn't – I like him, so I'm very happy with it. It wasn't my intent to get him everywhere, but you had mentioned earlier, you're throwing darts in the third. 210, 211, 212, you're kind of in the same boat unless somebody falls that becomes a real value there, which I haven't seen. And to me, Edwards is just screaming pick me at that point. So ton of Bryan Edwards. I probably got another 7 or 8 drafts to go, and I can't imagine not landing him in a bunch of those leagues too.
Yeah, you're going to be super heavy on Edwards. And listen to our podcast. We're both high on Edwards. He's not there at 210 if he participates in the combine, in my opinion. I think he goes higher in the draft if he does.
Yeah.
And he ends up being drafted ahead of some of these other players. Let's just touch on a league that you and I are in. And it's a league your team is extremely competitive in. So kudos to you for being able to do this. But let's talk about Infinity War. You had the 101 in that league when you were talking about diversification. You went and took Jonathan Taylor over Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I still would have went with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I regret that now. Okay. By the way.
I had Edwards-Helaire in another 101, and I was like, I'll get Taylor. But just knowing the scoring in this league, I should have gone Edwards-Helaire.
Listen, Jonathan Taylor was my 101 before Edwards-Helaire got overdrafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. So I don't not like him, and I still love the landing spot in Indy. I'm not even worried about the 1 year Rivers with that offensive line and that head coach. They're run centric. He's not a bad pick. To your point, scoring format in this league, I was surprised, but still a stud. And then you went again at 110 and took Keyshawn motherfucking Vaughn, who's going to just park Ronald Jones on that bench so quickly in this Brady win now window that people aren't going to know what hit him at the end of the day. I mean, I think that's value, honestly. You took him 1 pick after Akers, so the top 5 running backs were gone. It is a super flex league, so both Barrow and Tua went. You didn't take Justin Herbert. You went with Vaughn over Herbert. I don't know what your quarterback situation. I think it's pretty good, and you're not that high on Herbert.
It's okay.
Then Herbert went. Then at 112, you took Justin Jefferson above Rager. So this might have been that situation where you said you had one, so you're diversifying. I would have went Rager.
Well, I'll tell you what. I took Rager in my home league, which is not PPR. It's standard scoring. And I love Rager. He's my wide receiver 1. In this league, he is.
I didn't look at your ranks. I need to get on that. Okay.
He is my wide receiver 1 now.
Listen, you're talking about how much I liked him. You were trying to take shots at me for my biases. He's still mine too. I still have Lamb above him, so we're going to talk about that a little bit more.
Nope. But yeah, just given the PPR scoring, and it's kind of more of a win now because I am competitive in this league. I just think Jefferson's in a better spot year 1 in PPR. I think he's going to see the volume in Minnesota that I don't necessarily think Rager's going to see next year. 10 years from now, I wouldn't be shocked at all if Rager's the best player. But I think PPR, I think Jefferson's going to have a better rookie year than Rager. So that's why I went Jefferson.
Yeah, I can't argue it. He's ready-made for that slot. There's nothing other than Thielen in his way for targets. And as much as I love Rager, G-Jax is going to be back. I'm now hearing puff pieces about Alshon Jeffrey being a role. They have 2 tight ends of significance. They throw to the running back. I don't disagree with you on that, especially short term. And listen, for those counting at home, that's 3 first-round picks for John, including the 101. John lost in the semifinals in an upset in this league last year where we had him walk into the championship with the roster he has. We're not even going to it, but it was a star-studded roster. So 3 first-round picks. And then he has to wait all the way to pick 210 to pick again. Where he lands Bryan Edwards, as he indicated. Then Antonio Gibson goes right after him again. Anyone who listens knows how much we love Antonio Gibson. was talking to John before we recorded, and he did think Gibson would probably fall to him because he had the 212 as well. Surprised to know that John is just hoarding picks. Went and took my boy Zach Moss, who I think is a good pick. I have been on record saying if he outscores Devin Singletary this year in fantasy, it would surprise me zero surprises. The quicker touchdown upside, and he has just as much. He's probably going to get as many touches in his offense, to be totally honest with you.
I don't know the exact stat, but I was listening to NFL radio in my car, and they were talking about landing spots and all this stuff. And they had mentioned with Moss going to Buffalo, something about how many rushes inside the 20 or inside the 10 they had, and how much of that went to Gore, and how that's totally vacated, and how Moss should just slide right into that role. So as much as I'm not a Moss fan, I needed running back help in this league because my guys are aging out pretty quick. So I was like, well, if I can get my hands on a guy who's going to get, allegedly red zone work from day one, I don't think he sucks, but I just am not as high on him as you. But he's got to, if he goes right in the vacated Frank Gore role, he could have plenty of touches inside the 10, and so I will roll the dice on that one there at 212.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer, and I feel like Zach Moss is going to be your Van Jefferson to me. It's a guy that you're probably going to have more of than you want to, just by osmosis from this podcast, and I agree with you there. And then 2 picks later, you went Devin Duvernay at 3-2, and that's where we're stuck because Batman refuses to draft in Infinity Wars. Get it? Batman Infinity Wars? Nope, no one gets it. It doesn't make any sense. Got to change your team name if you listen to this podcast. But I like the upside of Duvernay. There is nothing outside of Marquise Brown in that wide receiver room. Maybe there's a Miles Boykin lingering around somewhere. Duvernay is going to step right in the slot day one. I really like that pick for you.
The more I have looked at him, the more he's becoming a fast riser for me. Mm-hmm. So these first drafts, I probably missed him in a few spots. I could have gotten him. My later drafts coming up, I'm probably going to overdraft him. I just think he's in obviously he's on one of the best offenses in football. Willie Snead plays in the slot now. There's no reason he can't take the job.
Willie? Yeah.
Yes. There's no reason he can't take that job by, week 8.
He's already taken it, John. He literally is already taking it. I don't even need to go on our labs to see he's the starting slot receiver for the Ravens week 1.
The other thing too, I'm a Fournette guy, and I like players that like to play physical. He hates getting tackled. If you watch some of his highlights,
it's so cliche, but he's turns into a running back with the ball in his hand.
Yeah, he's fun to watch. So I hope he works out. And he ran up. Wasn't he a 4.39 guy or something? He was one of the faster guys at the combine. So out of the slot, kind of that RPO system they have where he I don't know. I think he's in a really good spot. I think I probably have him too low in my rankings. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I'm pretty thrilled to have landed hhim, and I'm going to be grabbing him a little bit more in my other leagues.
Yeah, I have no argument against that, and he's growing on me as well. 4.39. Decent broad, 123 inches. Not the best 3.713, but reasonable, almost a 36-inch vert. Didn't do the bench, but that 4.39. He's a speed guy, 5'10", 200 pounds, built like a running back, as they say. I'm growing on him as well.
He looks bigger to me than that.
He does. He's 5'10", 200. That's a stout individual.
Yeah.
I'm 6 foot 205 right now, so you knock 2 inches off my head without losing any of that weight. It's got to go somewhere else. So
it's
I'm a world-class athlete.
It's exactly what I thought when I was looking some stuff up on him yesterday. I was like, shit, same, because I'm 6'2", 205. I'm like, huh.
Exactly. That's just muscle. I'm surprised he didn't do the bench because I doubt it would have been that disappointing for a wide receiver. But
no.
So kudos to you on that draft so far. You're hitting home runs. I can't even argue to Jefferson given the league format. I still would have taken Rager, but you got backup and you don't even need it. Half these guys aren't even going to play for you this year.
No, they're not. None of them.
At the end of the day, so
Taylor will get my lineup.
The future's looking bright. My team and Burke and I picked up. We were in a dispersal in this last year, and it wasn't the prettiest. It wasn't as bad as the one you were telling me about before we recorded, but it was light. So I knew I was in for a few years before I was really going to compete. And this is also the league where I drafted Andrew Luck about a month before he decided he wasn't playing football anymore in this 2 QB league. So that just totally put me behind the 8 ball. I used a premium pick on a guy I thought was going to be a QB1 for 5 to 8 more years. And he said, I'm not going to play a single game for you. I mean, it's literally like he's my Trent Williams, I guess. Just we have disagreements, and he's never going to give me any fantasy points.
I think it took over 3 orphans last year with dispersals. The one we did together, and then 2 other leagues. And I took Luck in all of them. Oh.
Yeah, we had a lot of luck. So I'm working hard in this league, and listen, not a lot of running back either, but I didn't have a first. I gave my late first up to Burke pretty much to get Carson Wentz, and I don't even know what else I gave. I think Mike Williams in a 2 QB league. Thank you. I'll take Carson Wentz at pick 9 in a super flex league all day long. Yeah, but it sucks to sit out and not be in this first round. I traded up to 111. I took Herbert. I'm not the biggest fan, but he will be a starter sooner rather than later. And I needed reinforcements because my QB2 is Phillip Rivers. And then I just said, I'm just going to throw another dart. I don't even know what I traded. Curtis Samuel in a third to get to 208. And I threw a dart at Jordan Love. I think that's the more I'm reading is that train's coming down the tracks. That was all the GM's pick. That wasn't LaFleur. And the GM's going to make that a reality. It's the sooner rather than later. I think best case scenario, worst case, whatever you want to consider, 2 more years of Aaron Rodgers. That's it in Green Bay. And then they're either trading him, releasing him, or they're going to do something. And I'll wait on 2 years for pick 208 to potentially start in a super flex league. It was worth it to me. There wasn't better players on the board. There was better players. You took Brian Edwards afterwards, and I do like Antonio Gibson. But in this league format, I'm taking the long game. So I reached on 2 quarterbacks, and then I'll fill in, my running backs and receivers over the next year or so. And if that happens, I'm going to have young quality quarterbacks with bench depth in 2 years in this roster. And I realized that this league's only like $35 a team. So I absolutely said, why not just reach for upside and see what happens? So those have been my 2 picks so far. So you hear all John's amazing picks, and then you hear me reaching for 2 quarterbacks that I don't even really like in this draft. That's where we're at.
In Superflex, and this is probably one of my bigger flaws as a dynasty fantasy player in general. I have a hard time bumping these quarterbacks up. Like, I couldn't have pulled the trigger on Herbert. I mean, I had a chance, and I could use a quarterback. It's not like, I'm in okay shape. But I'm just not willing to pay the premium. And down the line, I end up getting fucked by it because there's a couple leagues, where I really need quarterback help. And I just get, raked over the coals when I'm starting to put out offers, and I'm not willing to pay the prices either. So there's a few where I've just been rolling out my one quarterback. But it's also worked out for me because I'm not overvaluing or appropriately valuing quarterbacks. I am pounding wide receivers and running backs, so I am able to plug them into the flex spot and get more points than, the QB 26 or whoever.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Just talking about this draft. If you felt so disposed to take Herbert at 210, he was your second guy, I would have been so happy to get Keyshawn Vaughn at 110. I would have been so happy to get Keyshawn Vaughn at 111. And I'd still trade into that pick, whatever I gave up to get that pick, and I take Keyshawn Vaughn. I would have preferred him to be.
Yeah,
to be honest with you. So I'm there, because he would have helped my team right now be more competitive. But once he was gone, there's not a running back that was worth it to me to go up in there. I mean, a running back didn't go again until McFarland went at 206, and that was way too early in my opinion. I like McFarland, but he's never going to beat a bell cow in Pittsburgh. And then the next running back that went was back-to-back Gibson and Moss at the end of the second round. So there was a chasm because all those running backs, Vaughn's the end of that tier for me, and I'm not reaching for another one after that. I'll keep trading back, and I'll take the guys that are falling late second and third. I'm not going to take Antonio Gibson at 202 because I need a running back. I'll trade out of 202, or I'm taking a receiver, and then I'll just hope and pray that I can make my way into some Gibson shares at 302. But I liked everything you did in that draft, and it'll be fun watching you dominate again this year.
A little more Gibson talk. Do you like him more in PPR or standard scoring? Because I'm starting to come around. I think he's not going to get a ton of volume, so I think that might ding him in PPR, but I think they're going to find ways to use him. And just looking at what he did in college, I think he's going to get in the end zone even on limited touches. So he's kind of somebody I've been bumping up more in the handful of standard leagues I'm in. Like, would I take him at 202 in a standard league? I think I would if I needed running back.
I can be totally candid. I don't play in a single standard league. I refuse. I mean, so I can't answer that question with any basis. So my thought is he's not. I don't think he's going to ever be a full-time either. And he's never going to be the dot-the-I running back that gets 15 carries and 5 catches a game. I just don't see it. But I think he can be the 5-catch, 5-carry guy any given week. And so you give me those 5 catches that are probably going to be 50 yards, if not more. You're talking 10 points. Give me those 5 carries. He gets another 20 to 30 yards. We're at 13 to 14 points. You're throwing a touchdown, and he's threatening 20 points any given week. And I just think that PPR side, and I agree with you, he's just dynamic. And if they use him appropriately, which they don't have a lot. This is Washington, okay? I still don't believe in McLaurin as your guy. He's not supposed to be a 1. He's a good 2 on a team. They didn't do anything. They brought in Antonio Golden, who stinks. He's not going to do anything but maybe catch a couple fades here and there. They don't have a tight end of consequence on their roster. Jeremy Sprinkle's their starter at present. Am I correct? They didn't bring anyone in. They didn't draft anyone.
There's somebody else, but nobody good.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't, Olsen didn't go there with Rivera. They didn't make a play on anyone else. If there's someone, I totally skipped me on the radar. We all love Darius Geis. I want to see him stay healthy, but that hasn't happened yet through 2 years. And behind him is nothing. It's 35-year-old Adrian Peterson. It's Peyton Barber, who greater than Ronald Jones, but still not saying much. It's J.D. McKissick, who he's already taken his job. J.D. McKissick, just his flame just went out for the second time. I thought there was a little value in McKissick, and now that Gibson's there, McKissick's nothing. And I think they have another – Bryce Love. Okay, Bryce Love didn't play a game last year, tore his ACL, did all that type of stuff. They draft Gibson. He's already ahead of Love. Gibson's the running back 2 on that team, potentially. I think Adrian Peterson's a break classification mark.
I don't think he's even going to play like –
But if Geis gets hurt, Adrian Peterson's the 20-carry guy again. I agree with you.
Yeah.
But a year from now, when there's no more Adrian Peterson there, he's definitely done after next year. Who knows what Geis is going to be? He's going to be that change of pacey guy, and he's going to be the 10 to 12 touch a week guy. And listen, I don't believe the Rivera saying that he reminded him a lot of Christian McCaffrey. That's all well and good. I mean, okay, he's a running back that can catch balls. So now he's Christian McCaffrey. Say David Johnson. Let's be a little more realistic. Christian McCaffrey is just a unicorn. This dude just screams David Johnson to me, just in his build, the explosion, the way he runs, the way he should be deployed. I think the thing that happened to David Johnson is they thought he could handle 20 carries a game in Arizona when he broke out, and he can't. He was never built for that. I don't care how big or strong he is. You need to deploy him differently. Stop pounding him all game, and maybe his career would have been totally different if they use Antonio Gibson as this guy that he never sees over 15 touches in a game. He's not, don't do it. Don't do it to him. Give him high quality touches. Give him explosive plays. I think he can be a running back 2 as early as next year.
Would you be shocked to see him with more receptions than carries?
No, I mean he did that at Memphis, right? I think I always flip him.
But he played more wide receiver.
Sure, he was designated as a wide receiver.
Yeah, I think
it was like 38-33, I think were the touches. So he's pretty much even designated as a wide receiver. It was like a 50-50 split in that offense. Now he's a running back. I
think they're going to have a lot of 2 running back sets, and they're going to motion him out to the slot, and then he's going to be running back in name because that's where he's going to go when they line up. The quarterback's going to tap his foot back there, and he's going to jog out to play slot receiver from the running back position, is my guess.
Yeah, they're going to go 21 personnel. We were just talking about tight ends that they don't have on their roster. So, no, they're not going to go 12 personnel like the rest of the league seems to want to at this point in time. Yeah. They have 1 tight end. Go 21. Have him be, in essence, your slot guy. I mean, it might ding Steven Sims a little bit in the long run. I mean,
hurtful.
Who really is Steven Sims at the end of the day? He's hurtful. Not Antonio Gibson. So there's a path to opportunity for him, and it wouldn't shock me. 10 touches a game is 160 touches in the year. And you can between running back touches and wide receiver touches for him, mean, even if he has like 70 targets, they're going to be short area targets. He's catching 55 of them. And at the end of the day, give him 5 carries a game is another 80 touches. I mean, that's 130 touches right there. That's 1,000 some yards and 6 to 8 touchdowns.
And we've been talking about this on more than one episode, but I think we're going to more of a running back by committee league wide. So that could be enough to get you comfortably into the RB2 conversation.
Yeah, so give me the highly accomplished receiving back. The true wide receiving back. That's what the title should be from now on. Wide receiving back is Antonio Gibson's official designation. WRB is what Antonio Gibson should be designated as going forward. And I agree with you. I mean, you're not getting these bell cows anymore. Jonathan Taylor is going to be an anomaly. He is going to be a 20 carry back. And I think as early as this year. Anyone that thinks Marlon Mack is going to threaten him other than a change of pace and staying on the roster in case Taylor gets hurt because they're in extreme win now on a 1-year deal with Rivers. That's what Mack is. Mack could be a league winner if Taylor gets hurt or that fumbling problem creeps up again. But outside of that, they committed that capital to Taylor. They're not going to waste time with him. But outside, you're talking about Cam Akers, DeAndre Swift type guys, even Edwards-Helaire. They're not seeing even 15 carries a game right now in their offenses.
Correct.
They're not seeing 20 touches in any given week. They still have decent enough B-backs behind them with Kerryon Johnson is still going to see 10 touches a game. Damian Williams isn't going away. They trust him. He's going to be there for at least one more year. He's seeing his 10 to 12 touches as well. And then Darrell Henderson isn't disappearing from the face of this earth. They spend draft capital on him. They're still going to try and find a way to get a return on him. And then Malcolm Brown's still there, who was stealing goal line touches from Todd Gurley early last year. Peak his head up again. So I think Cam Akers is going to be a 300-touch guy. I think everyone's being a little short-sighted if that's the vision. You're right. There's going to be a lot of this. You better hope that your running back's the one who gets the touchdown that week because that's going to be the difference between him and the other running back on his team in being a quote-unquote viable starter versus a low-end flex.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. So getting off the Antonio Gibson train, which we'll be writing weekly from this point out, I guess. Have you seen anybody in your mind who's been I don't want to say riser and faller, but is there anybody you've seen go a little earlier than you were anticipating in your drafts, or anybody that's been falling a little bit that you thought would be going a little earlier?
Yeah. We were talking about our league seeking destroy beforehand, and I want to take a shot at the newbie in the league. But Henry Ruggs going at 104 in a Superflex league was slightly eye-opening for a guy that I don't think should be going at 204 in a standard league. So that one kind of shocked me a little bit. In my one, and there was another league that actually drafted completed that I totally forgot about because it literally went the day after the draft. Herbert went 103 over Tua.
Was this? I'm shocked.
Yeah,
what league?
It's a league you're not in. It's a league that I'm in. It is a super flex. That the draft was the day after the NFL draft concluded. So I think we went on Sunday or Monday morning, if I'm not mistaken. And the upside is just not there to justify that. Trade back. Don't draft Herbert at 103. I mean, take Jonathan Taylor, to your point. Like I'm just not doing it. I'm going to find value or I'm moving back. So I can't get there. That league, I was able to get Keyshawn Vaughn at 202, still a little early on before everyone started being like, oh my gosh, was people paying attention? It's Tampa Bay, guys, and it's third round capital. And now we all got to love Keyshawn Vaughn. There still was early enough that I got him at the 202 easily. It's a league I spoke about on the previous pod that I flipped him for Ayuk and A.J. Dillon. Truthfully, in hindsight, I regret it already. It's like a week. I was like, I got him. I thought it was value, and then I moved on immediately just to diversify. I don't like Ayuk, and I don't like Dillon. So what did I win there? I think I said the same thing on a previous pod. But I was able to get Bryan Edwards in that draft at 212, falling right into that same sweet spot that you said. Bryan Edwards is the quintessential end of the second-round pick. It seems like in every league you or I are in. Yep. And that's value right there. I mean, no one's going to call him a sleeper. That's a value pick. If he doesn't move off the end of the second, everyone wins that picks him at the end of the second round. He's immediately worth more than an end of a second round pick the second he's on your roster.
Yeah.
And I was able to get Joshua Kelly at 307 in that same league early on. Again, you know how I feel about Joshua Kelly. To get him in the mid-third round, I think he is going to be the 1B to Austin Eckler right away in that offense. I got your boy Van Jefferson at 309. He's still hanging. He's hanging out. No one's seeing that draft capital and going to check out Van Jefferson tape. I'm
telling you mentioned earlier about somebody Edwards not going to the combine. Van Jefferson not going to the combine is going to make him. He's moved up because I was getting him these mocks. I was getting him consistently in the late third into the fourth in a lot of these mocks I was doing. And then he got a bump immediately after the draft when I started doing the post-draft mocks. But he's kind of vanished again, and it's like he was picked mid-second, folks. Like,
dude, he went before Denzel Mims. Just let it sink in. Everyone was like, Denzel Mims might be the best wide receiver in this entire class when it's all said and done. I've seen that more than one place. This dude got draft capital above Denzel Mims.
I just saw a thing last night, oddly enough, because I am a big Van Jefferson guy. They clocked him at the Senior Bowl practices and stuff. He was the fastest player at the Senior Bowl.
We all know what that means for John DeBar's rankings.
Well, I didn't know this before my love fest.
I know, but you'll adjust one more time just to factor that in. Yeah, so I'm there. I mean, listen, at 306, 309. Duvernay went 310. We were just talking about Duvernay. I don't know where I'd land right now if I was redrafting and they were both sitting there for me at 309 because I really do like Duvernay, and I think he's going to have a more immediate opportunity than Van Jefferson. We just got to hope that the Rams don't give Cooper Kupp a big extension. I think that's Van Jefferson's path opportunity. I know that what's-his name's going to be gone next year, Josh Reynolds, but Jefferson's not going to see anything this year, barring injury.
It's funny you compared the two. In my home league, I was on the clock at 401. I went with I have enough Van Jefferson already. I was like, do I want another Jefferson share, or should I pivot to Duvernay here? So I went Jefferson, and then the next pick, my buddy went Duvernay on auto draft. And I texted him. I was like, that's where I was hoping would fall to me on my next pick. And he was like, I had Jefferson as my other guy queued up. So I think a lot of people have them kind of right in that same area.
Yeah. And then in this draft, the last pick I had 2 fourth-round late picks. I threw a dart at Cole Kmet, just top tight end drafted. I probably will end up cutting him when it's down to roster cuts because I'm good at tight end. I have Kelsey and Goddard. So I don't even know why I took him, to be totally honest with you. Should have took a running back and any running back. But then I took KJ Hamler at 408. KJ Hamler deserves better than that, to be honest with you. I mean, this guy has upside. I mean, he's more of a best ball-y type guy, and he's the second wide receiver drafted in Denver, and they have Sutton there, and there's Fant, and is Drew Lock that good? I just believe that Hamler is a talented wide receiver, and that'll play out at the end of the day. KJ Hamler at 408 will be on my roster when I have to do cutdowns. I will forego some established lower end guys over Hamler's upside for a year or two. So the 408 pick will stay on my roster. 407 probably won't, but 408 is going to stay on my roster for this year.
So looking at DLF has MFL's rookie ADP. So through all the early MFL rookie drafts, they're getting the data and kind of giving the ADP. It's roughly, I think they said something like 600 drafts or something crazy. But the few that stand out to me,
that sounds light to me,
that are completed. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say you and I are talking about like 20 leagues between the two of us that we're drafting in right now. Like 2 people.
The couple that stand out to me, you mentioned Ruggs specifically, but he's going on average 13th overall, which is still nuts. First pick of the second. No, thank you. Vaughn, according to the data, is also 13th-ish. And that he seems to be going earlier in all the leagues I've seen. And then the one who seems like a faller to me so far is our guy, Leviska Chennault, who I think we both had as a top 3 guy before he ran his 40 and limped off the field. He's going 20th, 19.66. I mean, Jacksonville's already talking about, similar to how we mentioned Antonio Gibson. They want to get the ball in his hands. They're going to move him around the field. I think he's got a role And there's guys going ahead of him that I don't trust as much as Chennault. You mentioned Mims. Do I like Mims' talent? Yeah. Do I trust anybody from Baylor? No. Do I trust anybody on the Jets? No. So it's like, give me Chennault over Mims 10 times out of 10. Higgins kind of in a similar boat. I don't necessarily love the Cincinnati scheme. I don't love the coaching staff. I mean, he's to Burrow. If Burrow does take off and do what everybody expects, Higgins could have a nice career, but there's enough red flags there to scare me, whereas Chennault, maybe he'll get, 1 or 2 rushes a week plus some weird targets and some other stuff. I think they're going to get him involved. So to me, Chennault at, the back end of the second round, mid to late second feels like a stealing. I mean, of course, you're going to get him for 10 games as he sits out for 6, which is always a ding, but
the only thing keeping Leviska Chennault from being a superstar is himself.
Yeah.
The way he plays. And if his body betrays him any further, he is such a freak athlete for his size. And if they use him correctly, they said pretty much, we're going to use him everywhere except quarterback. It was pretty much the quote. Like, he's going to be a move tight end for them. He's big enough. He's like 6'1", like 230-ish, if I recall correctly. So he's even at that size, like, to your point, he was hurt to even run the combine. If you want to hold that 40 time against him, be my guest. Go watch the Colorado tape. He runs away from every D-back when he gets into the open field. At 6'1", 230, and would probably run in like the high 4.3. So, even if it's a 4.4, that's freaky fast for his size. I love Chennault. We want to talk about leagues we're in. Chennault went at the 207 in Infinity Wars to our buddy Jeremy Browen, Dynasty, Madman Mandy? Mad Mandy Dynasty was the greatest handle ever. And then he was trying to trade. I had the 208 where I ended up taking Love. And I literally wrote him. I was like, yo, dude, seriously, fuck you. You took Leviska Chennault. I'm just not trading you this pick. He was supposed to be mine at 208. So I stayed put with Love. And he went after Anthony McFarland, Denzel Mims, Henry Ruggs, like you said, T. Higgins. I'm sorry. I'm taking him over every single one of those guys. T. Higgins has the slightest landed in a good situation tied to, a young quarterback type upside. They just declined Ross's 5th-year option. AJ Green's going to be gone in a year. I can see it with Higgins. I'm with you. I wasn't there just on the tape alone or what he did at his pro day, but his opportunity is going to be immense. Those other guys, no. What Chennault can be is so worth the risk to me. And you said he's on average going 210. I mean, that's just it's insulting. It's
20th, so it's like 2.8.
I mean, that shouldn't be the case in super flex tight end premium leagues. Like, give every value to every other position, and you're still stealing Chennault in the late second round. I mean, him greater than Brian Edwards, and no disrespect to Brian Edwards, but if they're in that same ballpark, it's just Chennault went at 205 in the one league where I hoarded first round picks, and I didn't even have a pick around where I could get him, but I was trying. When I started seeing the names Denzel Mims, Michael Pittman go the first 2 picks around 2, I was like, there's a chance. And then Antonio Gibson went, and I was like, too early, in my opinion, for Gibson. Then Brandon Ayuk went with 204 and 205. I was like banging on the door. Let me in. Couldn't get there. Chennault went, and I went, all right, not trading into the second round at this point in time. I'll just take my thirds. Even right there, 205, 17 overall. I see value. I'm taking him over Ayuk every single day. I like what Pittman can be, but I'm taking him over Pittman. I'm definitely taking him over Mims. I never got there on Mims. And then when he fell to the end of the second round of the Jets, short his opportunity, but that told me what I needed to know, that just because he tested athletically, he's still super duper raw at the end of the day. And they have a plan for what Chennault's going to be in Jacksonville. And I'm interested. Tell me Fournette's not there next year and they don't have a guy that they literally have to give 20 carries to every week. They bring in more of a committee situation. Yeah, Chennault's going to see his way into 4 or 5 carries in a game.
Yeah,
in 2021.
It's funny. A lot of people don't talk about it, but you kind of inadvertently mentioned it. Is there a better feeling in the world than knowing you got a pick coming up in, like, let's say 5 picks, and guys ahead of you are taking people you have no interest in whatsoever? Like, when I see somebody take somebody I hate, I'm so excited.
Yeah, I mean, it's Christmas, just like Groundhog Day, Christmas. Like, every pick, you're like, Well, more value's falling. More, you have your like, well, these are the 5 guys. Like I'm 5 picks away. I don't know if you do this. I get my 5 guys.
Yeah.
I'm getting one of these guys. And then every time there's a guy not on that list pick, I'm like, all right, well, did it chop that bottom guy off? if I get 2 or 3, 1 or 2 on that list instead of 4 or 5, it's a win every day. But that's the beauty of this, right? Everyone values people differently.
Yeah. Seeing like Ruggs go, if I had 4 picks to go and it goes like Ruggs, Higgins, Mims ahead of me, do you know how excited I am?
Listen, in a 1 QB, this is a 1 QB league, and Ruggs went 111 and Burrow went 112.
Oh, it's a fantastic.
Tua went 207 at pick 19, just as a point of reference, and that's still too early for Tua in a 1 QB league. But maybe they needed a quarterback. I don't know the roster construction, but you don't take any quarterback in round 1 of a 1 QB league, no matter how good.
Unless you're totally.
No, you still don't do it. Because
if you let's say you just had luck, let's say you're running with 1 quarterback and you had luck last year, I could see if you think Tua is going to be a quarterback, QB1 for the next decade.
No, you don't, John. Go get the guy in the second round. That's fine. You want to trade up in the second round?
That's
fair. Be my guess. And granted, 112 wasn't a glory pick. The guys that I reference is who he let go. I mean, do you go get a Chennault, at the end of the first round instead of taking a Burrow? So maybe not terrible. I'm not drafting Burrow there. I'm going to try and sell that pick to move back into the early second. Still get Burrow and probably get a future second or something like that in a deal. I would be hard pressed to actually hit the select player button at 112 for a quarterback.
Yeah, in my home league, which is a 1 QB league, Burrow went 2-3, Tua went 2-5, Herbert went 306, and then Stidham went 312.
Okay.
So I was like, and I needed a quarterback. I'm like, whatever. And then we just mentioned, I think before we started recording, I grabbed Hurts at 408. So.
Goodness gracious, I'm looking. Where's Herbert went 310 in this league, and Hurts went 401. Jordan Love went 402. 1 QB
That's
league.
the first time I've heard of Love going after Hurts.
Yeah. So it's Hurts Love instead of Love Hurts. Well,
interesting.
Gotta mix it up.
But
listen, 4th round picks, so you sit on them, and But in this league, I think you can only taxi for a year, so you're gonna have to move those guys up to your bench. It is a deep enough bench that you can sustain it, but you only get 1 year of taxi on those guys, which probably shows why they were sitting there at the 4th round. But
in Superflex, just for comparison, overall so far, ADP, Jordan Love is going 20th and Hurts is going 24.
Okay, 20 and 24. So you're talking end of the second in
MFL
in a 12-man league, late and end of second for those guys in 2 QB leagues. That's fine because you're debating against those lower tiered receivers and running backs at that point in time.
Well, here's kind of the grouping. Chennault, we'll go with him. That's where we'll start with, who's 19. Love 20, Moss 21, Dillon 21, Edwards 22, Gibson 24, Hurts 24, and then behind them it's Claypool, McFarland, Evans, Hamler, and Komet. So there's definitely. Yeah,
I want none of those guys that you mentioned after them at that price point. Those are late 3rd round picks to me with upside. Of course, there's a couple guys you and I like in that cluster, right?
Sure.
We're talking Antonio Gibson. We're talking Bryan Edwards. That's where I want to draft those guys because I'm not reaching early second for them. But it makes sense.
What's funny, it's not funny, but this is kind of what I'd been saying in DMs, and I don't know if I mentioned it even on the pod before. As much hype as this class got, unintentionally, I just read off this name at the end here. You get to 24 in these drafts, that 3rd round dries up quick. Like you just said, I don't feel literally pick 24 is Hurts. Then the next one is Claypool at 26. There isn't even a 301 in ADP. It drops off a cliff. So you're going Claypool, McFarland, Evans, Hamler, Komet, Kelly, Eason. Then it gets into Van Jefferson, Duvernay, who I like, but you just said these are all lower end 3rd guys. The early 3rd is a real shit show unless people are reaching early in your drafts and some guys fall. I hate being in this 3rd round, and I hated it in mock season, and I've hated it as the real drafts have come around, with the exception of people, overdrafting other players and some guys that I liked earlier falling. It gets real ugly real quick.
I agree with you. You have to have conviction on some guys, to believe in that value, because it's really muddied there, and we'll just go back to the Infinity Wars that you made the last pick at that 302 and Duvernay. I think that's decent value. On Duvernay, you just threw his name in the end of the second, guys, and you got him early third. So it's even a slight value there, or maybe probably at his ADP, honestly, if you read him off after that.
34. He's 34th, so it's actually I reached.
Okay, you reached up. Okay, I didn't think those names went that far down, but you like a guy. You got to take him there. No one else is screaming at you, at that pick. To be honest with you, so if it's a Joshua Kelly for me, if it's a Duvernay for you, sure.
Man, Jefferson,
you're right. I mean, there's a chasm, which is why the first draft that I had completed, I aggressively moved up. Real quick, I looked at everything, saw what my needs were, saw what my collateral was, and I said, I'm going to make every play to get up and get my guys and get the fuck out of there. And that's what I did. I got my 2 running backs, and I got my Rager. I didn't have a second-round pick, so I just sat and watched. I tried to get in on Chennault, but sat and watched the whole second round go. I had 302 and 307. I ended up getting A.J. Dillon at 302, which to me is worth it if I can flip them. And then I got Hamler at 307, which looking back on it now, Duvernay went 308. I would have taken Duvernay over Hamler just on opportunity alone. I like Hamler's talent better than Duvernay.
Better system.
But I would have went with Duvernay in hindsight there. And then looks like I had a very late 4th. I got my boy Quintez Cephas, who we both like there. Mm-hmm. Got my boy Joe Reed early 5th. And then I think I called it a day in that draft. Yeah. So no second. I ended up with 2/3. And then I had a quick turn on 4 and 5 where I was willing to throw those darts. But you're right. If I read you the names that went between, mid-third and when I picked even, Cephas at 410, Michael Warren got drafted. Michael Warren, undrafted free agent, went to the Eagles, who I liked out of Cincinnati. But he's a UDFA went, Isaiah Hodgins, Josiah DeGara, again, a guy I like. That's not a dynasty pick.
Gross.
A bunch of tight ends, and this isn't even a tight end premium league, went at that point in time. Upside late round receivers, Prochet, who you said, Donovan Peoples-Jones, who I like, but didn't get the capital and didn't land in a good spot, in my opinion. Yeah, are all mixed up in there. Devin Asiasi went the end of the 3rd round, strictly because he got drafted by the Patriots.
The only tight end I'll be getting any shares of, and I took him in best ball, is Troutman going to New Orleans.
Yeah, and Troutman went 30. Yeah, he went 39 overall in this draft and wasn't even the first tight end drafted. Asiasi went before him. Komet went at 29 overall in this draft. Give me Troutman at 39.
For sure.
Over Komet at 29 all day, knowing you're still sitting on these guys for 2 to 3 years before they're worth anything. So I'm right there with you. That was an interesting draft because my strategy was totally different there than a normal draft, and it seems to have kind of followed me through the rest of the drafts. I've either had enough capital that I got super aggressive, or I've had no capital where I can't find my way into getting to some value picks, no matter how hard I try. So it's been the haves and the have-nots for me thus far. I know, like you said, you're pretty consistent in where you land, so you're finding your way into a lot of the same players. You stay true to how you rank guys and picking them. And hopefully as some more of my drafts come to fruition, I'll be able to do the same in my home league, which doesn't even have a draft date yet. I have 103 and 109 in there. So I'm guaranteed a non-Edward Solaire, Jonathan Taylor running back. I need to figure out who that is for me at that point in time today. Andre Swift. But given my roster construction, it might honestly end up being J.K. Dobbins at the end of the day.
He's another big riser for me.
Yeah, I can wait a year. And if he's the bell cow in Baltimore a year from now,
oh boy,
that's going to surpass anything DeAndre Swift can be.
Oh boy, does it.
Even getting a year right now. So I need to say I have some end stage guys. I have Gurley. I have Le'Veon Bell on my roster. I can't trade them. They're still startable right now. I have Nick Chubb as a 3rd. Does it make more sense for me to go J.K. Dobbins and prepare for 2021 than it does to get a Swift who's still going to sit on my bench by and large?
Yeah.
I think that's where my head is going. And then at 109, I'm going to get a quality receiver still.
Yeah, I'm going Dobbins for sure.
Yeah, so that's where my head's at right now. I'm fading on Akers a little bit. I love the talent. I don't like the landing spot. I had Akers above Dobbins even in my rankings. I think that's going to switch for me immediately, and Akers is going back to my 5.
Yeah, that shine on Todd McVay is slowly.
I think that's what I said on the podcast. I mean, he was just throwing money at people for a while, and now he's got it. It's that rubber band, man. That thing expanded. Now it's got to contract.
Yes.
They're giving away contracts. Here, get out from under Gurley, get out from under Cooks. Draft Van Jefferson. Kind of seems like we're not paying Cooper Kupp. We're tied to Jared Goff for however many years that contract forces you to be. Robert Woods isn't getting another deal. I think he's reasonable. Now we're just drafting these 2nd and 3rd round running backs. We're going to timeshare the shit out of these guys on their rookie deals, and we're just going to keep doing this. 2 years from now, they're going to use a 3rd round pick again on another running back. So they're going to do. Henderson and Akers aren't seeing second contracts with the Los Angeles Rams. So hopefully one of them gets a 60% share, but neither of them are getting 70, 75% shares in that. So it's going to come down to touchdowns again. Does either of them get the Gurley touchdown share, the 12 touchdowns? I don't know. And the talent is far superior for Akers and Darrell Henderson. I think it's a timeshare, and I think that's what they want to use going forward with the Rams. Stop depending on one guy to carry that load. Try and get similarly skill set, explosive type guys out of that backfield, and just split the baby right down the middle. And in essence, rip the hearts out of dynasty owners that want these guys to get the lion's share of the touches.
So real quick before we get out of here, are there any kind of late round sleepery guys that you've become more of a fan of, or guys who've got your attention, or people you think other people could be out there targeting, closing out these rookie drafts with some of these late 4th, 5th round picks that you're basically throwing darts? Anybody you like towards the end there?
Yeah, I mean, I've said Hamler a few times. I don't think his value is going to move much. I got him at 408 in an early draft, and I haven't really heard many people saying anything beyond probably like a late 3rd for him thus far. I'm willing to take that shot on Hamler. Tyler Johnson still seems like he's lingering as a 3rd round pick. In a 3 wide receiver set, I think he's going to have value. I think it unfortunately means death to Justin Watson at the end of the day, because Tyler Johnson's he's talented enough to beat out Watson in 3 wides, and who knows what the long-term looks like for an Evans-Godwin wide receiver room. They can't pay both of those guys. So Tyler Johnson's another guy. I mentioned Joshua Kelly almost ad nauseum at this point in time, but it doesn't seem like his draft stock has risen precipitously since then. I got him at 307 in an early draft, and I still think he's hanging there. You can tell me what his ADP is when I'm done. 31. Okay. I mean, so yeah, it's about right there, right? 24 picks in 307. 307. So he's not realizing any type of gains. I like Joshua Kelly. We've referenced Duvernay, early 3rd, mid-3rd type guy. Not so much that qualifies, but I do like Duvernay at that price point. Unfortunately, no. If you tell me 4th or 5th round guys, we both like Quintez Cephas. I think he's immediately the wide receiver 3 in Detroit. I was a lot higher on him pre-combine, but I still like the player, and he's pretty much free everywhere. He's well worth a 5th. In my opinion, he might be a UDFA.
45th right now.
Yeah. So late 4th round. I would sign off on Cephas as well. No one else off the top of my head. A lot of people are saying Eno Benjamin. I didn't like Eno Benjamin.
No, thank you.
Before the draft, but he is a guy away from being a guy away, and I do think he Arizona scheme. The guy didn't even have to leave the state, just like Joshua Kelly. So while I don't like him, I think he's worthwhile. Shall we say? What's his ADP? He's probably lingering under Josh Kelly or by Josh Kelly in like
36.
Yeah, under Josh Kelly. I don't hate that at the end of the 3rd round. He's probably more of an early 4th round for me, but those are some of the guys. I've said A.J. Dillon's name probably enough times. It doesn't seem like his value's risen. I think he's a starting running back in Green Bay next year. So he could get a short-term bump for you. While I still don't like him, I want to be quite clear about A.J. Dillon from the beginning of this through the entire process. I'm not a fan of A.J. Dillon, and I don't think he's a long-term play. I think 2021 could be a good time to reap some early season rewards and get out from under A.J. Dillon at value. So Top of my head, those are my guys. Who do you have?
So I'm going to go a little deeper. Kind of mentioned the two guys in Philly previously, but John Hightower and Quez Watkins are both going kind of in the fifth. That's a hell of a dart throw because I think it's going to be Hightower, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's Watkins. One of them is probably going to be starting in Philadelphia next year.
I'm there with you. Neither got drafted in the league in the one league in either league I completed. To be honest with you, and Quez Watkins fast as hell.
Hightower's quick too. Not like he sucks.
Big and lanky. He's just so skinny. Dude's like 170 pounds.
Yeah.
Like 6'1". Like I just don't like that body type. At least Quez Watkins is a little shorter and faster. They looked for speed, the Eagles. just speaking of bias, they went and got Marquise Goodwin, Jalen Rager, Quez Watkins, John Hightower. They realized that they were speed deficient and they didn't scare anyone last year, and everyone just compressed down on that offense. They had a type and they hit it hard in this draft. So I like both those guys. I don't know who it's going to be because it's not going to be both of them. They can't both make the team.
Correct.
So it's, does Quez Watkins bring the special teams value? I don't even know if he's a special teamer. I just know he's a smaller, faster guy.
Yeah.
We'll have to look deeper into that. But Hightower's one that got the draft capital.
The other guy who sticks out towards the end here, and I've been talking about him before, James Prochet, who if he can, he got shit for draft capital, but arguably the best hands in the entire class at the position. If he can carve out a little role for himself, there's not a lot on that Baltimore depth chart, similar to what we just said with the Philly guys. It would not shock me at all if next year Prochet and Hollywood are their two starting outside receivers with Duvernay in the slot. There's no competition ahead of him. There's no reason he can't.
Yeah, no argument. Given the capital, I'm not a Prochet guy. I'm not largely a Southern Methodist. I know they put some names out. Cortland Sutton's, finding his way into, high-end wide receiver 2 viability. Cole Beasley always gets brought up at the end of the day. Prochet didn't run, probably for obvious reasons. Because
not fast. Great body control, though. Just
sure.
He seems like one of those, even if he, is he ever going to be a fantasy wide receiver, top 12? Probably not. But he could be, you mentioned Beasley, not that I'm comparing them at all, but a guy like Beasley who you on the bottom of your roster, don't mind plugging in during your bye weeks and everything. He's someone who could, if he gets, some trust going with Lamar Jackson, he could come out there and get you, 4 or 5 catches every week, being just kind of a steady low-end wide receiver 2, possibly wide receiver 3 area guy in PPR. I like the upside based on where you're getting them. Getting them, 51 behind some of these dog shit tight ends. There's no way he should be going behind these guys. Undrafted, Thaddeus Moss is going 10 picks before him, something like that.
Yeah, I don't want to besmirch James Prochet's name, but I'm just not enamored by him. He's just like a volume guy, and while their games aren't apples to apples, and just like let's harken back to 2017 when we were all too high on Zay Jones, who was just a reception vacuum for 2 years at East Carolina, and it's just gaudy totals. So he was just getting peppered with work. Like I just don't know that he has a ceiling enough to ever be anything of significance. But to your point, he's free. He almost went undrafted in the NFL draft. He was 6'22".
Correct.
So the NFL didn't even think that highly of his production or hands in college. And granted, super deep draft. We can reference guys that didn't even get their name called. I'm with you, but he's the guy. You don't have to draft him. You just go pick him up.
Yeah, and I've got one last one before we get out of here. If you want to go super deep at running back where it falls off a cliff quite early, you want to throw a dart in PPR leagues.
Oh, are you going to say his name? Go ahead.
Raymond Kaleas.
Nope, not who I was going to say. So I do have another guy. Okay.
So Kaleas was Louisiana Lafayette, I believe, and the Buccaneers took a late pick, threw it out on him. And I don't know if you've seen anything about Arians, who I hate, has been talking him up, though. He said he's a joystick-type player, and he could see him coming in and immediately having a Tariq Cohen role in that offense. So that would be I mean, he's literally the freest of frees. He's currently 53rd overall. A lot of people don't even know the guy's name. But, as two people who hate Ronald Jones and everything else on this team outside of Keyshawn Vaughn at the position, if Vaughn's going to be the one, this guy can come in and be the change of pace guy and get volume with Brady, who likes throwing to his running backs. He's super sneaky, and I'm a big fan of the upside here.
Yeah, we hate Ronald Jones, so let's see what he can be. He's a free square.
5'8", 188, so he's not a big guy. 4'4", 240, 20 reps on the bench, 37 vertical, 120 on the broad. So those are all.
Louisiana, so that's his total. So, yeah, he didn't catch passes in college. I mean, so Bruce Arians can see something.
What's funny, I'm looking at Lance Zierlein's thing from the combine. Overview, change of pace, vet back. That's the first words out of his
he's a smaller guy. I'm there with you. I think he's immediately – well, I like Dario Ogunbowale there still. So I don't think he's automatically their 3. I still think there's a role for Ogunbowale if he can prove to be the pass catching guy there. I know that Vaughn is a good pass catcher. Ronald Jones is not a pass catcher, period.
Terrible.
So he's the one that's limited, which Ogunbowale might be the one ultimately blocking your boy Kaleas from ever being anything. Just veteran deference. The guy I was going to bring up, who I thought when you started into it, was Jason Huntley from New Mexico State, who went to the Detroit Lions. 5'9", 193. This kid had 134 college catches, over 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns, while still being proficient on 374 rushing attempts at almost 6 yards a clip, another 18 rushing touchdowns. Undersized, but is shown to pass catching chops. Had 39, 47, and 40 receptions in 3 years at New Mexico State. Not a lot behind Kerryon. We're talking Swift, Kerryon, Huntley. I mean, Bo Scarborough is not scaring anyone as being anything more than a placeholder. Ty Johnson's okay, but they moved on from him pretty quick to Bo Scarborough last year when they were struggling at running back. And knowing Patricia and those highly specialized roles and the Patriots tree is this kid could be James White light in this offense at the end of the day. And they end up moving on from Kerryon, who they should trade. They might be able to actually get some return for him now that they got Swift. I don't know that they need to keep him when they have a cheap Ty Johnson and Bo Scarborough's break glass catch emergency. Huntley is the free square that I'm looking at. And ironically enough, in the draft that I did early, that it was completed, where I traded up and was aggressive, Huntley went at 5'11", 59 overall. He got drafted. The kid got capital in this draft. Blew me away. Because I tweeted about him like a few days before this draft, and there's no way these guys are really following me on Twitter. I know that for a fact. They might listen to the pod, but never really hear anything about shit I put on Twitter. And I saw the kid's name. I was like, wow. I just kind of started looking into him a little bit more, and this kid got drafted.
Lifting up the level of your competition.
Yeah, I mean, so listen, keep an eye on that guy, especially in PPR leagues. He's 5'11" in this league, not getting drafted in any other league by and large. So, your Raymond Kaleas and Jason Huntley are super late free squares in PPR leagues that won't cost you anything. Another one, shout out to Debro, Derek Brown. He's been touting JaMychal Hasty a ton, who went UDFA to the 49ers.
There's another one too. They took two.
Yeah, they went and got Salvan Ahmed as well.
Yes.
I pushed back on Debro a little bit more just as kind of Twitter dialogue than really believing in either one of them. Salvan Ahmed's a bigger back. He's kind of proved to be a little more durable. JaMychal Hasty's older. I think he's already 23 years old, and maybe 24. Better pass catching prowess at the end of the day, and I do think that can play in San Fran.
Sure can.
They got Braid out of there. McKinnon's on the end of the rope. He did restructure to try and guarantee him a spot. Raheem Mostert's no spring chicken. Tevin Coleman's at the end of his deal at this year. There's opportunity in San Fran, even if one of those guys hangs around a practice squad for a year, to be something. Listen, they've made something out of nothing. Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert were fantasy viable, to put it mildly, for periods of time. And they were picked up off the waiver wire. Go get both of these guys. Go get JaMychal Hasty and Salvan Ahmed at the end of the day and just sit them on your taxi squad for a year for free. You can't lose making a profit. So both of those guys. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say that, but that wasn't me. It was 100% Debro. It was just brought up and then I went and looked, and I was like, I see where you're coming from. And then I saw they had Ahmed there too, and I was like, oh, it's good. It's only going to be one. You can't be both. So who's it ultimately going to be? And I'll defer to the younger guy. So I think I'm in the Ahmed court, even though he tested terribly from what I recall.
Sure did.
When people thought he was fast and elusive, and he didn't test as either. But San Fran saw enough to bring him in as a UDFA. So,
well, that should wrap up our early rookie draft reaction show. Hopefully this was helpful for people. You know, a lot of drafts go real early following the NFL draft, but I have a ton still coming up that, you know, are a month out. I have a few that start in the middle of summer when it's slow time, which I actually like more of. I mean, it's fun to get in these drafts early, and especially if you've been doing your homework the whole time, it gives you a big advantage. But there's some fun to have in these later drafts too, because you could react to a lot of the injury news. Who knows what's going to be going on with camps and all that shit this year, but a lot of people still have drafts coming up. So hopefully anyone who's listening that has a later draft, this will give you a little leg up on your competition, kind of seeing where people are falling and what guys are rising and falling in drafts so far. As far as from what we've seen, I think this was interesting myself, but anything to add, Walk?
No, it's just a more you know situation, right? And see, I'm a big proponent of draft early because we do our homework, so I want to reap every reward possible. You know, I don't have a league where I draft pre-NFL draft. I would be willing to get into a league with a pre-NFL draft, just because the guys that you love that you don't get. I put a tweet out. I got 0 Mecole Hardman a year ago. I'm going to get very little Antonio Gibson now. Those are guys that would have been value picks pre-draft. And, yeah, you're taking a ton of risk because they maybe don't land in that spot. Maybe they don't get drafted at all. So it's why it doesn't happen. I'd be willing to dabble in one of those leagues that has a pre-NFL rookie draft. But everyone else I want to be as soon as possible because the least informed people get the biggest advantage the further away you get from the draft.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just the reality of the situation. And in Dynasty, you want to believe that the people are in this year round. You know, that it's not an expanded seasonal league. It's Dynasty. So the sooner you do it, then you kick off your off season, trading and all starts to occur. So I'd like a sooner the better mentality. But you're right. Come June and July when, you know, it's just hot outside and there's no football. You'd be like, man, it'd be nice to have a draft right now. So,
yep.
I can buy in. Yeah, 2 schools of thought.
Well, that should do it. For my man, Matt Walker, I am John DeBari. We are the Fantasy 40, and we are out of here. Woo!
All right, hit end. I got to go school my kid. It's my day to be a teacher. You look like you need to go sleep.